All right. Well, I'll see if I get any live streamers here. Obviously, I'll be able to tell here pretty quick whether anyone is interested in talking or listening. That is, I ramble, I talk, I like to talk. Who knows? Maybe I talk too much. Probably do. Sorry about the weird focusing thing. I don't know why. I've got my overhead light on right now. I don't know if that's what's causing it. It's causing some weird focusing. You guys like my background of boxes? Uh, those are quite literally extra boxes that when I do some warranty work or whatever, if I have to scrap the inverter or whatever, I'll keep everything I possibly can keep. And I mean, it makes sense. Don't want to throw away anything that I don't want to throw away. Uh, but right now, I'm basically talking to myself. Maybe. I don't know. If anybody hops on, I don't know. It's showing zero people, so we'll have to see. But of course, now's a good time for the sun to start hitting my ring camera, which always sets off the motion sensing, and apparently that's a common problem. So, but I've got perfect view of my front door where my camera is at when I'm sitting in my workroom. And I'll tell you what, it can be really annoying. A lot of times I'll put my phone in airplane mode when I'm recording videos. I use my Sony for the wide shots, and then I use my Galaxy for the more of the narrow shots, the close up, or if I'm feeling lazy and I don't feel like going through and because I don't have a super wide angle lens. I'm using a 35, so I have to have the camera literally on the opposite end of the room. I've got my bench over here. You can probably see the bench right there. That's where I do a lot of my videos and testing. In fact, I've got a 3,000 watt inverter up there right now. You might be able to see. Got a 3,000 watt inverter up there right now that I've been testing today. And that inverter, uh, the batteries are charging because I drained the batteries. A little hint, uh, it'll handle 1,300 watts indefinitely, and without having to modify the inverter. So uh, definitely that would be the way to go if you were interested in an inverter. So I get a lot of questions, and I have two YouTube channels. One of them I have almost 10,000 subscribers. That's my GP vlog channel. That's the one where I focus on my Grand Prix. And actually, I started kind of doing some dabbling in renewable energy stuff while I was doing that channel. Uh, and eventually, I decided to separate the two. Uh, just because, you know, I created the GP vlog channel, literally Grand Prix vlog. I don't even know where I got that from. But the quick story on that one, that channel, I started that channel I think in 2010. I think is when I started that channel. It's been a while because it was my first Grand Prix. It was a 2004 Comp G. I love that car, but YouTube was it definitely wasn't at its peak, but it was very appealing to me, and I would watch a lot of videos. And most people didn't have, I mean, cameras and smartphones were still they were there, but you didn't get very good quality out of them. So a lot of times, what people would do is they would get, a high 8 camera or something else like that, and then they would just upload the footage as it was, recording along. In fact, I did this once, and then they started coming out with these YouTube cameras. They weren't YouTube cameras, but they were um, social media cameras, I guess. And I ended up getting a Kodak ZI 6, I think is what it was. Spent a crazy amount of time trying to figure out how to mount that in the window. And my whole thing about that was basically that I just wanted to do drive along videos, and I did them in such a way where the camera was off to the rear at an angle so that you could watch me drive. And very quickly, I got very bored with that. I got so bored doing that because that's all I did. I picked up a couple of subscribers, but it was just so boring to me. So then I started doing the how-to stuff and uh, repairs on the Grand Prix, and that's what really took off. That's what the channel. That's when more and more people started to search for how to fix this, how to fix that in your Grand Prix, whatever. And then we had a winter storm, an ice storm. I think it was 2014 or 2013 when we had that big ice storm. I can't exactly remember what year it was, but I had decided, and I was living in an apartment at the time, I had decided that I was going to get into renewable energy. And I knew that it was going to be a difficult task because setting up solar in an apartment was, I mean, I had searched YouTube, and it wasn't until I started posting some of this stuff about solar in an apartment that I started getting some messages from people who are like, oh yeah, I did the same thing. You want to see it? And they do videos on it and whatever. And a lot of it was if you had a balcony, basically, of any kind, you could hang some solar panels either off the balcony, set it on the balcony, whatever. And that's kind of what I did. I had two 100-watt solar panels. And it worked great when the sun was on that side of the apartment. It worked really well. Uh, and it was funny because there was one day that the landlord they did the township required that they do yearly inspections, mainly to check your smoke detectors and things like that. And the furnaces for all the apartments were actually outside. Um, it was a weird design, but they were outside, and they were in this little furnace room that was outside of the actual apartment. So they had to go inspect those as well to make sure that everything was fine in there, smoke detector, things like that. So the last year that we were there at that apartment, they went out to the balcony to check the furnace, and he saw my two solar panels on this wooden stand that I had built. Uh, and I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but he just kind of stopped and he said something along the lines of, "Why do you have solar panels?" And he didn't even see the one that I had in the bedroom window, because I did have one in the bedroom window. It was a 100-watt solar panel, so I guess I had three panels actually altogether. It was a 100-watt solar panel, and believe it or not, when the sun was actually shining on that side, when it was getting hit, I would generate 50, 60 watts. Definitely not ideal, but it was going through the window. But it was enough to run my computer. Um, it actually, one time we lost power, so I had my fridge running off of it. I had a Royal Power inverter at the time. It was 1,000-watt inverter, and you know what? I spent $350 on that inverter. It was expensive. A Royal Power 100-watt high frequency, or 1,000-watt high frequency inverter. I did some videos on that. It's on my other channel. But it was it was so funny because he just kind of, it's like, obviously it was the first time he'd ever seen solar panels on somebody's apartment or in somebody's apartment. But and I was all worried at the time. And looking back, like, why was I so worried? I was worried that they would think that I was going to burn the apartment complex down or something else like that. It was 12 volts. Yes, you can still start a fire on 12 volts, but a lot of that, I would just be concerned that the neighbor would report me or something else like that. I don't know. It was just kind of weird at the time. And when we moved from there to where I'm at now, not in this specific house, but same neighborhood, I had much more freedom to be able to put solar panels up wherever I wanted. And I learned a lot. I really did learn a lot. I wanted them on the shed. So initially I put 5 panels on the shed, which was okay. it was 12 volts. So between the charge controller and the shed where the panels were at, I was losing about 20%. So it wasn't ideal. But I wanted to, do something. I wanted to, um, hey, how you doing? Let's see. Sorry, it's small. Errol, is that your name? Errol? Uh, the it's pretty small, but anyway, so I at that point was when I got my very first power jack inverter. And it wasn't the one that I actually put on YouTube first, my first power jack inverter, because that was a 5,000 watt. And the reason that I started doing this chat is I just thought to myself, you know what? You guys can probably see my very first inverter is actually sitting back there on that shelf, right back there. That was my very first inverter, and I that thing has been through hell and back. I'll tell you what. And I modified it so much, and learning everything that I've learned over the years since I bought that thing. I'm telling you, there were things that I just didn't understand, and I thought I could fix the problems, and I ended up making a better inverter. That inverter does run really well. It's a 12 volt inverter, um, but that inverter was a really good inverter. I mean, it really was. It got me. Um, I didn't run my house on it because at the time we were renting that house, and so I couldn't exactly modify anything with the panels or anything else like that. It wasn't in the cards. So what I did is I basically ran everything off of a couple of extension cords plugged into that inverter up there. Um, it just Hey, I appreciate it very much. Running. Sorry, these comment. This is actually the first time I've ever um, live streamed like this. The comments, they come and they go within seconds. Let's see. Shop and car lift off grid completely. You know what? I'd love to see that. If you could do a video of that, that would be awesome because I would love to be able to see that. I try to encourage more and more people to show me what you've got, even if it's not a power jack inverter. I don't care. Whatever solar panels you got, batteries, inverter, whatever. I'm absolutely a huge fan of those who are striving to be off the grid or are completely off the grid. I'm jealous of some of you out there that I've seen who have 15, 20 kilowatts of solar out in your front yard and you've got enough batteries to power a whole town. And so, but I really like seeing that kind of stuff. I really do. So if you can get a quick video and upload it, send me the link and I would love to be able to see your setup. But anyway, so I appreciate it very much. 240 split phase air compressor, 8 kilowatt, huh? 8 kilowatt power jack inverter. Cool. Wonder how many horse that motor is. But so my long before I started this particular channel, when I was still on the GP vlog channel, I'm running all of the stuff basically out of this one plug right here. I'm running everything, and by the way, this is also a 5,000 kilowatt inverter. I actually just repaired this for a customer, and so sitting on the bench here, I'm getting ready to do a load test to make sure all is well, and that's I hook it up to the batteries that are over here and let it run a couple of hours. But a lot that I learned from that inverter, and I was worried that I was going to burn it up because that Royal Power inverter, that 1,000 watt inverter, it had a 3,000 watt surge, and I plugged it into my big 12,000 BTU air conditioner, my window air conditioner. I plugged it into that, and I appreciate it very much, the video. 30 batteries, awesome. That's awesome. I like seeing those Nice. Yeah, PowerJack had a problem with with their transformers. They were really really noisy on L1. It was a manufacturing issue or something, and uh, every inverter, obviously, I test with the oscilloscope to make sure that it's working fine. But there are some that come to me with warranty issues, and I will add the caps if I see that they don't have caps, and then of course it cleans the sine wave up. And sometimes I wonder if it's not that's causing some problems internally. But anyway, I don't remember where I was at, but yeah, that 5,000 watt inverter, I would run everything off of an extension cord, a splitter, and all that stuff, and it worked fine because I had my computer on it and things like that. Oh yeah, the Royal Power inverter. Uh, yeah, you know what? The big 10Ks and 15Ks. Of course, I don't have one right here handy. Of course, why would I ever have one handy? But the charger board, it's the same between version 7 and version 8. So it's actually pretty easy to add the caps. In fact, I've got the caps right here. This big old thing of caps right here that filter out that noise, and it actually does a pretty good job. But that Royal Power inverter, I tried running my big 12,000 BTU window air conditioner off of it. I had the battery bank for it. Tried to run the inverter off or the air conditioner off of it, and pop! It just popped. I was sitting in the next room because I had it mounted in the window. Sitting in the next room, I hit the power button on the air conditioner, and within a tenth of a second, I would say, I heard this big, what sounded like a firecracker go off in that room. Of course, I went in there, and there it was, burned up, just like that. And there were lots of blade fuses on the inside. They were, I think they were 30 amp blade fuses. They were all blown. So I figured, okay, I just blew the fuses, no big deal. I replaced all the fuses, and the inverter still never came on. And when I got a hold of Royal Power, because they had a warranty, when I bought it, I was 6 or 7 days over the 1 year warranty on that inverter. They're based out of Canada. So, oh, nice, good. Um, Royal Power is based out of Canada, and so I sent them the inverter, and they wanted to charge me almost as much as a brand new one to fix it. They didn't tell me what was wrong with it. I just got the email, and they said, here's the cost of what it's going to cost to fix it. And I just sat there like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. So I told them, just keep it. That's stupid. Don't even send it back. It's yours. So that's when I went and I bought that power jack inverter. And I was on eBay, and I remember I was looking, and just like everyone else, I saw a 5,000 watt power jack inverter, and I thought, wow, it was only, I don't know, $300, something like that. Free shipping too. So I bought that inverter, and that's where my sort of, I guess you would say, relationship with power jack started, was with that inverter. And I did a lot of experimenting with it. It would shut down because I would have, uh, that inverter is a split phase inverter, but I never hooked it up in split phase. It's got one outlet on it. I never hooked it up in split phase. PowerJack doesn't make the 5 kilowatt split phase inverters anymore. That was the last of those. And they really should, because that transformer is a really good transformer. It actually is. But anyway, so uh, the the inverter, it was just working fine, but it would shut down due to overheat quite often. Charger board for the 8K that was split phase properly. You're talking about V10, I assume. No, not yet. However, PowerJack is aware of this. If you're talking about the V10, they are aware of what's going on. They are designing a board that you can replace. It'll be a drop-in replacement. It'll require a little bit of work on your part. As soon as they've done that, they're gonna send me one, and I will do a video on how to do that. And I'm assuming they're gonna send me, a a whole bunch of them, because I know that there's a lot of people now who are wanting to make their V10. Okay, it's V9. You've got a V9, so you've got the what is essentially the power tank inverter, which is a V9 inverter. You've got the 8,000 watt power jack version, but it's actually a power tank. Uh, and so, yes, power jack is going to have a board that is a drop-in board. It's a drop-in replacement. The only issue is that you're going to have to do some soldering, because the glass fuse holder on the front, which is where L2 goes directly in, you will need to move that, create a ring connector. I know it's not ideal, but if you want split phase, this is basically how you're going to have to do it. You have to put a ring connector on the end of that and then run that into the board with L2. So L1 and L2 will go into the board, and then your center tap will no longer go to the board. It'll go to the N on the front of the inverter, where the older ones actually used to be. So I already explained it in a video why PowerJack did that. Um, it's just, I don't know. They trying to word this so it doesn't sound like I'm criticizing them, because I'm not. They made a decision on a line of their inverters to make it basically 120 only, or you could get 240 if you ran it in series, but it wouldn't be split phase. And I know that they're labeling them as split phase. That's what confused me at first, because I didn't even know what was going on until someone had sent me an inverter for warranty. They said they couldn't get, they were getting like 12 volts or 15 volts AC out of the front. They couldn't figure it out. Well, as it turns out, it's simply because there was no N. And I looked at it first, and I'm looking at it like, where's the N at? Did they pull it off? Did the customer modify this inverter? What's going on here? I had no clue what was going on. And so I ended up getting a hold of PowerJack, and I was talking to them back and forth about it, and they had explained to me what they had done. They had modified it for the latest version. Now, some do have split phase. Depends on which inverter you get. I haven't been able to figure it out yet, to be honest. But yeah, so that's the deal with the split phase issue. Some people are obviously very frustrated with it, especially if the listing says split phase. I mean, that right there, uh, that is a sales team issue. That's not the higher ups in PowerJack. The sales team should have modified the listing to state that it wasn't split phase. Sorry, I'm trying to. They disappear so fast. Yeah, yeah. Um, so anyway, uh, that's the only thing that I could think of. In fact, I was testing a split phase inverter without N, and it was working fine. But so anyway, uh, that I keep getting sidetracked a little bit. Not your fault, but so yeah, that 5,000 watt power jack converter that I modified quite a bit. I put a high speed fan on it. I put an exterior push pull fan on it, and it ran really well. But it still wouldn't start uh, that big 12,000 BTU air conditioner. And that's when I bought a 8,000 watt inverter. Actually, my dad bought it for me. I My dad had a stroke. He had a couple strokes actually. We were sitting in his garage, and I would visit as much as I could, but it was always so hard to visit because I was working full time. So I'd only get over there, on a Sunday afternoon or something. But uh, and I was just sitting there telling him, because it was really hot out that day, and I said, yeah, if I can only run my air conditioner, my window air conditioner, on my batteries. And then we started talking a little bit back and forth. And I said that inverter just, it's not big enough. It doesn't have the juice. And so we were talking, and he said, well, what's it going to take to get you to run that air conditioner off the grid? And I said, well, PowerJack also makes an 8,000 watt inverter. And at the time, I thought it had two transformers that were running series. As it turns out, no. The one that I purchased actually had one large, long main board and one transformer, which was an AS3 transformer. And I was modifying that one as well. I modified it. I added a high speed fan that had a manual fan switch on it. Did some other stuff to it. In fact, I sold that inverter to a friend in Traverse City. But yeah, I modified that inverter, and that was at that point I still wasn't able to run my window air conditioner, and I have videos of this on my other channel, that is, where I had this 8,000 watt inverter that I was trying to start my window air conditioner on, and it still wouldn't do it. It wasn't a battery issue. It wasn't a battery cable issue. The inverter just could not start it. So I added a run start capacitor to the window air conditioner, and then it was able to start it. Because I was running things like my fridge and other stuff. It was the split phase inverter, but it still wasn't able to start that window air conditioner. Uh, so once I was running my air conditioner, I was looking at some various power jack inverters, some bigger ones, because I was actually interested in running my house. I wanted to hook everything up to my house, and so I was looking at some of their big inverters, and that's when I messaged one of the salespeople, actually on Amazon, and I had asked them. I said, you know what? I've got this YouTube channel, and at the time I was like 6,000 subscribers, something like that. It's like, if you can loan me one of your big inverters, then I will I will review it. I had no affiliation with PowerJack or anything else like that. I sent him the link to my channel, and I honestly did not expect to hear anything back from them at all, not a bit. And I got a response a couple of days later, actually, and it was the lady at the PowerJack Amazon, and she said that she had talked over with her boss, is who she called it, which I assume was Jack. Talked over with her boss, and they would send me a 15 kilowatt unit. It was an early kind of pre-production. It was the new style, the big ones that they have, not the long torpedoes. It was a 15,000 watt inverter, so it was basically like a pre version 7. And they agreed to send it to me, and so they never said anything about sending it back, but I did say in the follow-up email, I said, you're gonna have to send me a return sticker for this, so that after I'm done with it, reviewing it and so on, um, I'll send it back. That was originally what I had decided to do. I was gonna send it back to them, and she told me to keep it. So I was like, oh wow, that's cool. So I hooked it up to my battery bank when it arrived. I took a bunch of pictures. I think I did some video, and I went on the another Power Forums, which is a place where I would hang out quite often and look at other people who are modifying their inverters. And it wasn't, to the extent that I was doing. A lot of people were just taking all the guts out of the inverter and building some custom thing, mainly because of the transformers. The transformers were something that everybody seemed to be after. They were good value, I guess. Uh, so I posted a bunch of pictures there, and everybody's like, "Whoa, that's a completely different design." And so uh, I hooked it up. Everything ran fine, and I went inside because at the time I had everything out in the garage. I went inside. I turned on the computer, and I was sitting there for a little bit, and I was actually getting ready to write back to PowerJack Amazon to let them know that I had everything hooked up and it seemed to be working okay. And then all of a sudden, my computer and my fan shut off. It just completely shut off. So I went out to the garage, and I could smell the burning smell. All the MOSFETs, all of them, it burned up, all of them. So my first experience with a 15K inverter was burned up MOSFETs. And of course, I emailed them, sent them pictures, all that stuff. And they sent me, typically what they do, or what they did, they still do it now, but they sent me a big supply of parts. And that's when I really started to learn about these things. I was looking at all the parts, and I was looking at how they worked, and things like that. I was really dissecting them. I replaced all the parts. I replaced all the MOSFETs, all the MOS boards, and went to go turn it on, and poof, all the. I mean, I look back and I'm thinking to myself, Jesus Pete's, why did I blow two sets of MOSFETs? And it had to be something. I don't even, to this day, I don't know. I don't even have that inverter anymore, I don't think. I think I ended up tearing it apart. Um, so anyway, they sent me a replacement, a whole brand new inverter. And that one worked, and I still have that one. It's still in a box. It is a prototype because they basically made it just a couple of days afterwards. I still have that inverter, but that inverter ran for, oh geez, a year, maybe a year. I think I had that inverter running the house for a year. And what I ended up doing was, because the garage had a dedicated breaker panel, and it was connected to the main panel via a 60 amp breaker, I just used that panel to energize that panel before I got all, you know, electric code compliant and things like that. It was a guerrilla setup, there's no doubt about it. But it ran the house, and it was great, and it ran everything in the house, central air included. This was a 24-volt inverter. It did run the central air. Uh, and so I was really impressed. And it was at that point that I noticed some problems that were occurring. Uh, and it first started with my washer. I had noticed that my washer wasn't. It would reset. I'd be doing a load of laundry, and 5 or 10 minutes into it, it would reset, and it would go back to as if I hit the reset button on the washer and started the load over, and I couldn't figure out why it was doing that. Um, and then there was another thing that I started noticing was there was a one of my battery backups that was in the next room over was kind of whining a little bit. It wasn't. It was a weird kind of a high pitch kind of a noise that was coming from the battery backup. I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. Well, as it turns out, there was in fact, and this was back before I got an oscilloscope, that L1 on that inverter it had some noise on it. After I got my oscilloscope and I looked at it, and oh man, it was terrible. But eventually it burned up my my washer, because I was doing a load of laundry, and all of a sudden I heard this pop, and it blew the ground fault protection plugs in my kitchen. And as it turns out, L1 was energizing my washer and that line of plugs that was in the kitchen, because my fridge turned off, and I was like, damn it, and I couldn't figure out what exactly was going on with that. Um, yeah, the inverter would have been fine if I would have known that. Even Power Jack didn't even know at the time. I'm pretty sure that I was the first one to report to them what was going on. Uh, the I finally bought an oscilloscope, and what I did was interesting, because I took L1 and I ran it up by itself to the 110 volt plug, because it actually uses L2 to connect to the 110 plug on the front of the inverter. So I ran the L1 up there because I had this suspicion that there was something going on, because half the house was working fine, the other half wasn't. Um, so I swapped them, and then I was having some problems, so I swapped them again, and then I took a nightlight, and I plugged it into the front of the inverter, and I put my finger over the sensor, the light sensor, and it was just like, it just blew it right up immediately. And no, it wasn't 220 volts. It was 120 volts. It blew the resistor right out of it. And then I was going to try something else. I hooked in a power strip, and it blew the resistor right out of the power strip. So I knew there was a problem. That's when I bought an oscilloscope, because I was emailing PowerJack back and forth, and I told him, there's this problem going on with this inverter. I sent him some videos and I said, this is burning up this stuff. What's going on? Obviously, something is going on in L1. And they asked me if I had an oscilloscope, and of course I didn't at the time. So I ended up buying a cheap handheld oscilloscope, which I got around here somewhere. Uh, my handheld oscilloscope, of course, I connected it, and you could see it was just noise, just absolutely everywhere. So that's the problem with that particular inverter. So I asked them, what I should do about it. You guys gonna send me some parts or replacement or something like that. And from then on, I actually wasn't able to get a hold of him for a while. Some of you might remember that if you remember that time. I was trying to contact them. I couldn't figure out what was going on. It was as if they were ignoring me, and I kept messaging them, trying to figure out what was going on. And eventually I went to the PowerJack website. This was months later. And I was running on L2. And I was doing videos on this inverter. And I was running on L2 only. So only half of my house was energized. And I found the Skype, uh, their Skype on their PowerJack, their official website. And it was Jack. It was his Skype. So I got on Skype and I messaged him real quick. I said, hey, my name is, maybe you know me, blah, blah, blah. I had this problem with this inverter. I'd love to be able to get it fixed. I've been sending you guys suggestions over the past year about how to improve these things that I've done to improve it, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm interested in continuing on with this to help you guys out. And he forwarded me to one of the salespeople to get parts for it. And that's kind of where everything started with my direct relationship with PowerJack, because they ended up sending me a new inverter, and I went over that thing with a fine-tooth comb. It ran great. I still have that inverter. It ran great. They ran the house fine. There were no problems with it whatsoever. I did some videos on it. That was when I did my big load test, that big 13,000 watt load test. And, that inverter really did a great job for me. It was wonderful. And they set up a suggestion list for me because they had compiled a whole bunch of things that they had suggested. I had suggested that they, how you doing, Nolan? I can't see. Ugh. But I had suggested early on that they come up with a way to allow the customers to modify the output voltage, and then version 8 came along where you can adjust the output voltage. I had suggested that they do like a automatic backup system where people don't necessarily want to have the inverter running all the time, but it keeps the batteries charged. And then if you lose grid power, then it would switch to battery, and they added that. Um, there were some other things that I was suggesting that they do faster fans, because at the time the fans were pretty slow, and I was watching the inverter temperature. I noticed that there were parts of the inverter that were warm. All this other stuff that I was going through with them. I was just sending them suggestions, basically, based on my own experience, modifying the inverter, and that kind of stuff. And eventually, the guy himself, Jack, he asked me if I would be interested in doing some warranty work for them when there were customers that, at the time, before I came along, if they needed to replace an inverter or needed work, they would either send parts or they would just send a whole replacement inverter. The problem that they were having is some people weren't returning the inverters. So they were keeping their inverters that were supposedly broke, and then they were also getting brand new inverters. That didn't happen all the time, but that was an issue because they didn't have a warehouse in the States where they could send this stuff. They basically, there was a guy who collected up all these return inverters, and then they would send them to China after, and he had a big big huge barn, so he was able to hold all this stuff, and they would basically gather up enough to fill a truck full, a semi truck full of inverters, and then they would send it back to China to be serviced or repaired or whatever. And obviously, that's months long of inverters just sitting around, not being used or anything else like that. So that's when they brought me on board, or they had offered that I could at least work on the warranty side of things. Um, and it has been awesome ever since. I honestly do like working with PowerJack. I do. I wake up in the morning. I like working on inverters. I like testing them. I probably don't. Well, I know I don't have the hugest, largest battery bank for really testing the inverters to their absolute threshold. Um, there's some things that I could get, but I work really hard for them, and they've always been really good to me. Um, this it's been a good business relationship. I started my own business, Genetry Solar, uh, to be an LLC basically, so that I had a separate business and then my personal and stuff like that. So I would have obviously records, tax things, and all that other stuff. I set up my own business, and then basically entered it into an agreement with PowerJack that I would service their inverters for warranty or repairs or whatever else. If a customer needed repairs to their inverters, then they would send them to me, and it saved them a lot of money because they were no longer throwing away money by storing these inverters, and then basically they wouldn't be able to do anything with them. And by the time they got over to China, they'd be a whole version or two versions behind, and so it just didn't work out for them. And I was really fortunate to be able to get this job. I've always been happy with them. Like with any job, sometimes you scratch your head, things like that. But what I really like about PowerJack is, and I know that some of you out there, I know it. You don't believe it, and that's fine. You can believe whatever you want to believe, and that's fine. I respect your opinion, but over the past year, actually it's been a year and a half, over a year and a half now, I have gotten to know Jack more on a much personal level. I talk to him not over the phone. That's WeChat actually. Um, WeChat is a big thing in China, but I talk to him, some of his salespeople, and I've gotten to know them really well. And they are genuine people who are trying to basically they have one goal, and that is to make the best possible bang for the buck inverter. And it's are you working full time for yourself yet? No, I still have two jobs. I'm part time just for healthcare. At my other job, I work 3 days a week, and I'm doing this basically all other times. I mean, I can honestly say I clock 70 or 80 hours a week working um, between the two jobs. But anyway, uh, I've gotten to know Jack. I've gotten to know his sales team, and their goal, as I said before, their goal really is to make the best bang for the buck, and they've they've learned through me. I'm not trying to take credit for everything, but they've learned through me what is considered to be acceptable marketing or a better marketing or the things that you should do to improve your products. And uh, they these are things that they genuinely didn't even know. I mean, I actually had someone message me and complain that on the box, and of course I don't have one of those boxes here handy, but PowerJack writes on the box what the inverter is, obviously on the box itself, and they have a transformer that they call ASS, Okay, ASS, obviously. Oh, just it's so funny because people get offended at everything. But I actually had somebody message me and tell me that they returned their inverter, which anytime you get a return or a warranty or whatever like that, it's automatically sent to me, whether it's through eBay, Amazon, doesn't matter. And they they had bought this 1500-watt inverter, and they were extremely offended that PowerJack would put profanities on their box. And at first, I'm just I sat there for a second thinking profanities. I thought maybe they put some kind of Chinese letters or something on this one box that looked like it might have been some kind of a profanity or something. So I couldn't wait to get this box because I was wanting to see what these profanities were. So I get the inverter, I'm looking all over it, and I opened it up, I looked at it, I didn't see any profanities, and um, it it was funny because I ended up responding back to them, and I said, I'm sorry, I couldn't find these profanities that you were talking about, and they said that PowerJack had told them that they were an ass, and I had to get clarification on this because I said, "Oh, so you talked to one of their salespeople?" And she actually, it was a she, female. She says, "No, they wrote it on the box." And so I'm looking at the box again, thinking, "Where's this profanity at? I couldn't find it." And then it just like light bulb. The 1500-watt inverters have what PowerJack calls an ASS inverter. They have ASS, AS1, AS2, AS3, AS5, 6, 6.5, 8, and 9, and 10 coming up here soon for their big inverters. But they it said ASS on there, and I had to respond back to them, and I said that's just the name of the transformer. That's what they internally designate the transformer's name is ASS, and I explained to her it's AS1, AS2, and she responded back. She says, "Oh my, I feel so stupid about this right now." And I said, "You know, they didn't, they weren't calling you an ass. I mean, they just weren't." But it was it was funny. Hi Amber. By the way, good call on the 1500-watt inverter. Except you were a little bit high. Uh, I don't think I do right now. I haven't been getting the only burned up transformers that I have received are the AS 6.5 transformers. This one here is an AS4. This big boy right here, pretty big actually. But no, I'm sorry, I don't right now. Uh, yeah. So um, it was a funny kind of situation, but um, it's things like that I had to bring to PowerJack's attention. Is that here in the States, some things are acceptable, some are not. Just like in China, some things are acceptable, some are not, and that's it's one of those things where you got two different cultures that are trying to work with each other. You've got a business culture, personal culture, and as it turns out, you know, the staff at PowerJack, they're they're people like anyone else. Whether you agree or disagree with how their country is run or whatever, when it comes to working with PowerJack, I stay completely out of the politics. There's no discussions at all between me and Jack and anyone else at PowerJack about the trade wars or you wouldn't believe this that I heard in the news or you wouldn't believe this or whatever. We work together for the same goal, and that's not to start a political war of some kind. Um, Jack is a good person, and from what I've as much as I've talked with him over the past year and a half, I've gotten to know him really well, and he's a genuine guy. He was brought up differently than me and you and everyone in the states. Uh, he genuinely wants to make a good product, and it's all about value basically. And at first, I was really critical. I still am critical of Power Jack. You know, I'll tell them, hey, this is what you got to do to fix this, or here's a problem that you've got. You've got to take care of this. You know, you've got to do stuff. This I have gotten into some heated discussions with the sales team who does not understand in certain cases things that I see or hear from people, because I get messages all the time, constantly, from people with problems with their inverters or complaints or whatever. And so I tried to bring all that together and say, here, this is a problem. You have to fix it. Here, this is a suggestion. Try it. You know, there's all sorts of things that and they'll have me write something up on why this is work and whatever, and that's all business. But they don't ever close the door on me. They've never once said we don't care. They've never once said not interested, because they keep a tally of everything that I basically have suggested, and I will get answers basically. Either it's going to cost too much, or yes, we'll do this in the next version, or whatever, because they have a goal. Just like the 1500-watt inverter that I tested, um, they have a goal to keep it at this price. When you start to get above a certain cost, then you have to raise your prices, especially with the tariffs going on right now. Um, and so they have actually been eating some of those costs to try to keep the prices of their products low, and they've been doing a pretty good job. But once you start putting a whole bunch of money into a 1500-watt low frequency inverter, then you may as well just get rid of it and make it a 2000 watt or a 3000 watt. Because the 1500-watt inverter, when I was looking, it was like $120 or something, 110, 120, something like that. And you get up to about 600 watts of pure sine wave on there, and you can go further. Not for very long, but you can go further. But it's a good sine wave for what you get for that kind of money. You walk into a grocery store, basically, I know my local grocery store has them, or a Walmart or whatever, and you buy one of their $99 Duracell modified sine wave or square sine wave inverters. That's just the sun hitting my security camera out there. But you're spending $100 on something that's not going to give you the clean sine wave, and it's definitely not going to have much in the way of surge and things like that. So they it took me a while to see what they were doing, but this is what they do. And a lot of people understandably focus on the fact that if it says 1500 watts, it should, no matter what, be able to do 1500 watts all day, every day, 10 years. And I get that. I understand. I'm not saying that's a wrong way to think about it, but it's not PowerJack's way of thinking about it. It's not the way that they've marketed their inverters. It's not the way they've designed their inverters. They design them for absolute maximums, and that is, they could be 5 seconds, 20 seconds, 2 minutes, 10 minutes. That's just the way that they do it. And is a little bit of nudging that I've done, they've kind of come down a little bit. Like, I just did a video on their 4000 watt inverter, which used to be a 5000 watt inverter, so they are bringing it down a little bit, but you're never going to see them put a larger transformer in a 1500 watt low frequency inverter, because it's going to cost too much. And it's not that they're trying to milk every penny out of you guys. It's that they would have to raise the price by $20 or $30 then on that inverter, because it's going to cost them more to manufacture that. And then you might as well just not even have a 1500 watt inverter at all. You might as well get a 2000 watt inverter or a 3000 watt inverter. The so okay, regarding the overheating transformers, PowerJack a while back, actually their inverters in the early days, long before I came along, their inverters were actually kind of based on another, and I can't remember the name of the company that also had um, inverters that were similarly designed, a toroidal transformer. And I have actually seen pictures. Somebody sent me a picture of their inverter that had an identical main board, control board, but it used a different transformer. It was it wasn't a toroidal transformer. It's something you'd see in like an Ames or a Yan inverter. And I was kind of blown away. And come to find out, their design way back in 2012, 2011, something like that, was based on another inverter company. Um, Thank you, Amber. I really appreciate it. But the I don't know where I was going with this. The Transformers. PowerJack decided that they were going to go with a toroidal transformer design, like what you see right here, this big round transformer. And in the early days, this transformer would act like a bowling ball inside of the inverters, and it would destroy everything in the inverters. So what they ended up doing was they doubled down on the clamping force on these. They got a bigger pad. They got a bigger metal lid cap for these things. And the drawback to that, by the way, these AS4 transformers are actually really nice. If you can get a 6,000 or an 8,000 watt inverter, this is a version 10 right back here. If you can get one of these things, these are actually really nice. I've had a lot of luck with these particular transformers. Um, these are purpose-built transformers. These are really nice. But anyway, so uh, the trapping of the heat inside the transformer, and I've heard some people say, "Oh, it doesn't matter what you do; it's going to overheat." But the trapping of the heat just exponentially causes problems with the inverters, and it's because they can't seem to ship them to you without them being damaged, and that was a huge problem. In fact, when I first started repairing for PowerJack, when I was doing their repairs, um, a lot of the damage on the inside of the inverter was because the transformer was rolling all over the place in there. Uh, so you know the I've done my best to try to come up with suggestions, solutions. You guys have known that I've shared some of my ideas to try to get this fixed, and they ended up falling on a design of a transformer bracket. The transformer bracket looks kind of like a four-legged spider that sits on top, clamps it down, and believe it or not, it actually does work. The problem is it traps in all that heat. So a savvy customer will open up their inverter and they'll remove all of this stuff. But you can't ask people to do that. You can't put in your instruction manual, open your inverter up, remove these bolts, remove this bracket, blah blah blah. You just can't do something like that. It's not ideal. There's probably liability involved in some way, although you could sue PowerJack all day long and you're not going to get anywhere because they're in China. But uh, that's kind of one of the reasons why I stay apart from them. I don't want to be employed by them. So I've got that separation right there. But anyway, so the uh, the inverter, uh, I don't know, it, you, okay, you can't, like I said, you can't have customers opening up their inverters and modifying them. Those of you who watch the videos that I do, and you see that I modify my own inverters for cooling, high-speed fans. We're in the very last design stages, I hope, for these new LCD screens here, which are Wi-Fi. And yes, we will be doing an external antenna. This is the very first version. This thing is a powerhouse. I'm telling you, it is a powerhouse. It will turn a 15,000 watt inverter with 3 fans into a massive high performance inverter with 6 high speed fans, Wi-Fi, better cooling, not just because of fan speed, but better fan speed controls. This thing completely takes over for the CPU on the power jack inverter, and it is way better than what power jack has right now. Hopefully they start installing these after we've finished. Hopefully they'll start installing these, but I will be selling these as a kit with just the board itself, with fans, with extra sensors, things like that, when we're done. And I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. But you know, that's just the problem that Power Jack has with toroidal transformers. All that heat gets trapped in there, and it's got no way to come out. It just doesn't. And like I said, you can't ask customers to open up their inverters and modify them or remove parts or something else like that, because it's just going to cause even more problems. And so yeah, in this regard, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I had suggested that they use Loctite on the bolt, but when I was using Loctite on the bolts, the bottom of the inverter would still bend, and eventually the bolt would break away from the transformer, and they would just be loose and flop around in there anyways. Even though the nut on the transformer bolt wasn't moving at all, but because it had wiggled back and forth enough, because the bottom had bent and done this, eventually the bolt had moved enough where then it was just able to flop around. Uh, that's the smaller inverters are not prone to this as much. They don't have as much mass. Yes, flipping the transformer on the side is an option, and it's something that has been suggested, something that we have talked about, and it might be something that they will do for a future version. I don't know as of this point. But standing it on its side would definitely have its advantages. They would just have to make the inverter taller, because the big, huge 15K transformers that they have, they're pretty wide. So they would have to make the inverter taller in order to make that happen. Um, so it would require some design work, all new panels and things like that to accommodate that. I don't know if they're going to do it. I don't know. Um, but yeah. So overall, it's not ideal. I get it. I understand. I am just as frustrated sometimes as you guys are about stuff like this, and we have to take it one day at a time and continue to press on and continue to look for improvements and ways to improve the product. And when these things are running to their full potential, that 15 kilowatt inverter that I have that runs my house, I haven't had any problems with it. How long have I had that thing? 6 months now. Central air, uh, space heaters, all my window air conditioners, everything in the house, the dryer, everything. Yes, I've got high speed fans. Yes, I delidded the transformer. Yes, I put the heat sink compound on the FETs. I had to do some extra work to get that, but I did it, and I have not had a single problem with that inverter. It runs cool. The transformer radiates its heat out, and it's blowing out the inverter. I've always got a fan in there to blow all the air out of that room to make sure that it's not going to get stuck in there. I've had to do some work in order to get it to perform to its potential. It's unfortunate, but that's what else are you going to do? For a time there, PowerJack was selling their big 15 kilowatt inverters for $850. And I mean, how do you get an inverter that will do even half of that for $850? Where? How? Tell me. Um, it's they they've put together a great product, but there are some bugs that have still not been worked out, which we are working out. The shipping is a problem. Uh, there's struggles that we're still working on. But when you get the inverter and you get it hooked up and you get it, you know, working to its potential, they work great. They really do, and I appreciate the support. By the way, I am watching the. I've actually never used this chat system before. I only have literally like 3-4 seconds, and the comment disappears. I can hit the comment button, and then it'll bring the stuff back up for a second. But yeah, I do appreciate it. But anyway, PowerJack does have a good product here, and I'm not just saying that because I work with them. Believe me, I'm not. I see the product. They've got a modular setup, easy to replace parts. They've got good transformers, except for the AS 6.5. I haven't forgotten about that. I've got 3 or 4 of those transformers sitting over there right now. We don't know what to do with. They have good stuff for good prices. If they could just tie it all together, just perfectly tie it all together, they would just roll over the market. And I think that is kind of their goal. I really do. But sometimes, you know, it doesn't work that way. Again, I'm not trying to criticize them. They are trying to make business decisions that will keep the inverter price low and also try to improve on it. I mean, I have worked really hard with this gentleman who I cannot take credit for this, by the way. This thing here, we've been talking back and forth. I've said, you know, this is what I need, blah, 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 blah. And he has been an absolute saint when it comes to this stuff. He's the one who actually designed this board, the Wi-Fi, he's doing the programming, all that stuff. I'm just basically the tester as well as the suggester, and he's come, you know, through with me on this kind of stuff here with like this. But anyway, when it's done, I'll be able to give him a lot more credit. But you know, I'm trying just as hard to make sure that you guys are happy with your inverters. Okay, I feel for you. I understand your frustrations. I have been there. I have been in a spot where I have gone weeks without using my solar and my batteries because I haven't had an inverter because it's been busted. I know your frustration. I understand that. Anytime you get a product, I would expect, anytime I buy a product on Amazon or wherever, I expect that it works. Otherwise, I get a return or something else like that. I couldn't quite catch that comment. How much faster can the fans go? 24 volt was boosted to say 30 volts. A 24 volt fan is usually rated up to about 30 volts. I know that my high speed 48 volt fans that I use, do I have one here? No. They're all sitting up on display over there. This is a stock PowerJack 24 volt fan right here. We got a whole pile of them. But this fan here will handle up to 30 volts. If you go beyond that, it's not like it's going to spin out of control or blow up. But it's just going to reduce the life of the fan because it will heat up the fan a lot more. But I actually have a broken one here. I don't even know how this happened. What the heck? Sometimes I don't know how this stuff happens, but I do have a broken one here. But yeah, so they will handle more voltage than it just says 24 volts, and they have to. Now, my solution to that problem with my high speed fan modification, I'll go grab it real quick. Uh, my solution to that problem is this right here. This is a buck converter. This is made by Drock. I really like this thing. At first, I had the wrong impression of this thing here because some of the comments were saying that the settings are not persistent, and in fact they are. You can program this for persistent settings. So this is actually going to be installed with this. Okay, this is actually going to power this right here. This is where it would plug in, and it will limit the current of the fans here. Okay, so the fans would plug into here. This powers this screen and just makes sure that no more than 50 volts goes to those 48 volt high speed fans, and at 50 volts they scream still. But I was having an issue where, testing some of these off of my solar with the Make Sky Blue charge controllers, there was times when I was hitting 60 volts on a 48 volt setup, and I thought the fans were going to explode. It was that bad. So I decided that as part of the package that I'm going to be building and eventually selling on my website, it will include this buck converter, which you can install right inside the inverter. I'm trying to figure out the best place to put it so that it's not going to, come in contact with anything else. And also, it's going to have to be fused just to be on the safe side. However, what's really nice about this board here is that it's got the fans that are powered through here. So this will energize this, but the board itself is actually powered off of 12 volts down here. So even if this thing were to shut down and all your fans shut down, this will still run as long as it has power from the inverter. As long as it has power from the inverter, this will still run. So this will alert you, and it will say, hey, no more fans. What the heck is going on? And you have the option to shut it down, automatically shut it down. You can check on your phone. You can say, oh, shit, my fans just shut off. I don't know what happened. Maybe a fuse blew, shut down the inverter, those kind of things. There's so much in this board. I'm so excited to be able to get it into a working inverter to just wow. And the great thing is, the standby losses with this thing is way better than power jack. Way better. Why? Because the fans can run from 20% all the way to 100%, but the fans won't run unless you set them up that way, and they can basically come on to 20%, 30%, and it's all based on temperature and load. So you can, if you've got your inverter running, you're on vacation or something like that, you just have some house lights on, your fans may never come on while you're gone for a whole week, if that's all you've got going on. But then let's just say that you're gone for the day, you've got the air conditioning, the central air on, or something else like that. The fans will come on when they either see the load, and that's all set up for you, because all the settings are going to be inside this board. You'll be able to set it up. It will you can say, hey, if it exceeds 1,000 watts, turn the fans up to 30% or 50% or 100%. It doesn't matter. The possibilities are endless. Or you can tell it, only do it, regardless of load, only do it when it reaches a certain temperature. And we have the temperature probes, which I thought I had one around here somewhere. Whenever I need something, I don't ever have it. Of course, you guys probably know that. Hey, maybe I found one. Yes, I did. These power jack temperature probes that are right here. See that? You can hook up to 6 of these things. there. 6. You could have 4 on the transformer. You could have 2 on each main board. You could have 2 on a main board and 4 on a transformer. Uh, let's see. You know what? The version 8 has been very, very good. So there's no real reason to upgrade to version 9, um, to be honest. And believe it or not, uh, you'll see that I've got a version 10 back here. This inverter here, this is an 8 kilowatt version 10 inverter. It has a version 9 board sitting on there, okay? Version 10, the only thing that they changed for version 10 is the main board here. They doubled up on the MOS boards. So if you have a version 9 inverter, it works. It'll be fine. I mean, it's a great inverter. If you have a version 8, it's great. I think version 8 was really when they started to dial things in to make them more reliable. So I think version 8 is adequate for. It's more than adequate. It really is. It's a good version to have. So if you have an 8, no need to upgrade to 9 or 10. No need at all. They work great. They work fine. I get a lot more repairs for version 7 and version 5 than I do 8 or 9 or 10. So I think you'll be fine with your 8. But anyway, so yeah. These are the kind of things, and I've already read some of the comments like, what's the point? Why do you go through all this work? What are you doing trying to, why can't they just approve it? I understand what you're saying, but again, it comes down to cost. It's all about cost. If PowerJack can sell you an inverter for $900, even $1,000, let's say it's a 15 kilowatt inverter, it's $1,000, round number, and you can get 7 or 8,000 watts continuous out of it. Show me where you would be able to get another inverter that can do 7 to 8 kilowatts continuous and not be at the red line for the money. For an Ames inverter, they're expensive. They work great. Yayan, SunPower, all those inverters, they work great, but they're more expensive. Gosh, they're thousands and thousands of dollars for a big, either 12 or 15K inverter from Ames or Yayan. They're great inverters, but you're going to be paying for them. Okay, that's the thing. So I can take a 15 kilowatt inverter that you spent $1,000 on, let's say, or you have me build one. I can add this, more of these. Of course, I don't have the fans handy right now, but faster of these, heat sink compound, and I can still charge you less than half of what you would get for a Ames or Yayan inverter. And you could do 10 kilowatts on these things. So really it does come down to value, cost. It's just the way that it is. If you want to save $4,000 for a big Ames inverter, that's fine. That's your choice. Or you could spend, $1,600, $1,700, and you can get, one of the PowerJack converters that I put together with all this stuff, and it'll give you a lifelong of service. I can't say lifelong because there's no lifetime warranty on anything like that, but it'll give you years and years of service. And as long as you understand its limitations, as long as you don't constantly try to push it all the time, then you're going to have a great, reliable inverter that you're not going to have any problems with. So, anyways, yeah, I think uh, they're pretty much dead on for the cycles. Literally dead on. Typically, when I've got it on my scope, I'll see 60.01 or 02 or something like that. They're pretty much right on the nose. They've done a really good job. I've seen the programming in the CPU. It's pretty much right on. Um, so that's nothing to worry about. The only concern that I always have, and the big 15K inverters and the 10K inverters are much less susceptible to this, but especially the smaller inverters, the sine wave tends to fall off quite bad after you get to about 30 to 40% of load. Um, the two smaller inverters, you could do two smaller inverters. You wouldn't be able to run them in series. Um, and I'm working with somebody who is experimenting with running two transformers inside of one inverter. Seems to be doing really well, actually. Uh, that's a good idea. But yeah, running two smaller inverters. I mean, that's obviously an option. But the other issue that you have is if you want split phase or not. Unless you divided your house in half, meaning you had two breaker panels, one breaker panel split phase, the other split phase, and you have one inverter running one half, the other inverter running the other half, uh, it would be a little bit more of a challenge to hook all that stuff up. Whereas you can just get a single inverter here, hook it into your panel, and then you're done. It'll energize both sides, and you'll also get your 240. So you can run your dryer, your electric stove, your central air, things like that require 240 here in the States uh, to get that split phase. That wouldn't be possible with two inverters unless literally made two breaker panels like that. So it's the convenience of having one inverter to run it, and it'll do it. Like I said, over the summer I was running everything, and I didn't have a single problem. Some of you are going to be harder on the inverters than I am. That's fine, but I never had any problems, and I was regularly running 4 to 5 kilowatts all the time, and I wasn't worried that it was going to overheat. I wasn't worried about any problems. I would occasionally go above that, but it wasn't like the inverter was being pushed real hard, and it just uh, I don't know, it just works fine. So uh, I don't think I've ever had anyone say that they ran two inverters at once, but I don't know. I'd like to see it. I mean, I would if it's possible. You'd have a project on your hand, that's for sure. But anyways, um, I don't even know what time it is. I can't even tell what time it is. But anyways, so I figured I'd hop on here real quick. I'm gonna do some more of these live streams. I'm gonna um, answer all your questions the best that I can. It's getting late for me. Unfortunately, I do have to work in the morning. Not on project, but my other job. But so I'm gonna call it a night here. But I might do this, if I can. Maybe I'll take a day out of the week where I spend an hour talking to you guys. Because I like hearing stories. I like seeing pictures of your setups. I like hearing from you. Um, I take the criticism as well as I do anything else. So, I've had people who've come to the channel and just all they are is just one right after another negative, stupid, this, that, and the other thing. Those are the ones that I, um, pretty much just get rid of from that point. Um, I don't know everything. Don't claim to know everything. I'm still learning about a lot of different things in life. But I do my best, and I know that you guys deserve to have the best possible service when it comes to your inverters. Yes, I do have to do a charge. Um, I will. I got the batteries ready for it. It's just time. Time is something that I wish that in a lot of ways the Earth traveled around the sun a little bit slower. But then again, we probably would work more. 8-hour days would turn into 12-hour days. I don't know. Anyways, uh, so I'm not perfect, but I tried to do my best for you guys to answer all of your questions. I'm bombarded every single day with questions. Um, I've been having some issues with the post office, with a lot of different things. The post office has been terrible for me lately, just absolutely terrible. And I can't believe I actually somebody had sent an inverter, and the postal lady did not put the slip in the box because she didn't want to have to lift the inverter. And when I had lodged a complaint with the post office, the guy basically said, "We're union. Anything over 50 pounds is a health hazard." And I about fell over, standing there with other people. And I said, "Health hazard?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're union. It's a health hazard." I just, and here you got UPS that'll do 150 pounds, 100 pounds more. They're also union. You don't hear them complain or say that they're going to send a package back because they don't feel like lifting it. They go out of business. But because the Postal Service is backed by our federal government, they're not going out of business ever. They'll get bailed out or anything else like that. And I don't know. I've been very unhappy with the Postal Service lately. Extremely unhappy. It's very frustrating, and I don't know, it's terrible. It really is. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's about it for today. I'm getting tired. It's been a long day. Um, so again, I appreciate all your help. I can't say it enough. Your support, your everything. Um, and I, uh, I think we're all in this together. I've said it before in videos. We're here to, no matter what brand of inverter we use or whatever, we're here to be off the grid. We're here to eliminate our dependency on the grid. And we have to basically turn back the clock to go from what used to be normal to what is now considered to be abnormal. And it's amazing what time changes as far as perception. Um, and we take for granted electricity. We take for granted the things that we have. And the latest California thing with them shutting everybody off just really got me thinking even more about our grid is very fragile. You could say that it's super reliable and whatever, but it is fragile. Most of our lines are above ground. They can fall over. Trees can fall on them. I'm worried about things like EMP stuff. I don't lay up at night thinking, "Oh no, an EMP is coming." But I'm concerned about that kind of stuff. I'm concerned about hackers hacking our grid, getting into our power plants. I don't know what kind of safety mechanisms they have at nuclear power plants, but you never know. I mean, we've seen determined hackers do some crazy stuff, at least I have in my lifetime. And I wouldn't leave it out of their realm of possibilities. Um, to either shut down a nuclear plant or send false information to the operators, um, to uh, yeah, yeah, basically. But anyway, um, terrorist attacks, things like that. I mean, it, it is it's there is a lot of truth in how negatively we would react if we lost electricity. There would be panic. After the first couple of hours, people they'd be calling, when am I going to be restored, whatever. But then when they realize that there's no control anymore over the grid, that the electric companies can't figure out what's going on, or they've been shut out, or whatever, then panic starts to ensue. When panic ensues, people they go crazy. They get defensive. They get violent. And talking to some of these people who have a backpack worth of food, that's not going to get you anywhere. You're going to eat that thing up in 2 days, and then where are you going to be? You going to go to the grocery store? No, because all the shelves are empty. Um, Preppers are kind of considered to be this weird group of people who are just overly worried or crazy or something else like that. And to be honest, if I have to live, growing my own food or having to slaughter my own pig or something else like that so that I can eat like we used to a long time ago, or not that long ago, actually, 100 years ago, before electricity and steam engines and all that sort of stuff came along. If we have to live like that, fine. We live like that. Why not? We as humans have lived like that. It's only within the past 100 years or so that we've had the luxuries of electricity and mass markets and transportation and all this other stuff where we don't have to worry about um, slaughtering our own pigs or eating chickens and stuff like that. We just go to the store and get it. But there's always a possibility that that's going to go away. And I tell people all the time, don't flaunt your preparedness. Don't tell all of your neighbors, oh, I've got a year's worth of food in my basement. Or, just you don't tell them that, because guess what? If what hits the fan, they're going to come knocking on your door. I guarantee it. Your best friends, neighbors for 30 years are going to come knocking on your door because desperation causes people to do desperate things for survival. We are survivalists. That's what we do. That's what we did ever since whenever, thousands of years. We depend on survival. Our instincts will take over. We will do whatever we can to survive. So your friendship be damned. It goes out the window because my stomach is empty. I am starving to death and I need what you have. So kicking your door in, whatever it takes. I'm going to ask nicely first, but I'm going to come back with a mob of people later on. We're going to kick in that door. We're going to take everything that you got. We're going to walk out. We're going to survive. You're not, unless you're prepared to defend yourself. But why put yourself into a situation where you're telling everybody about all this stuff you've got and then make yourself a target? Why not get out in the streets like everybody else? I mean, I have heard it that way, where people who have 2 or 3 years worth of food, they've got tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition, and they're literally hardcore preppers waiting for society to fall apart all around them. They will act like the other people around them. Electricity goes out, they will go out to the streets just like everybody else. Why? Because if you bunker down all the time and you're not out there trying to make yourself not a target, then they're gonna say, "Hey, why he's not coming out? What's he got down there? What's going on here?" Knocking on your door. You just want to take the attention away from yourself. Don't act isolated. Don't act crazy. Get to know your neighbors, but don't indulge them with information. Act normal. If you guys ever come up with a conversation with, oh, what if, what hit the fan tomorrow, then act stupid. Act like, oh, gee, I don't know what I do. I probably go to the gas station or something like that. Act stupid. Act like you don't know. But if you're like, oh, I don't have to worry about that. Why? Because I've got 2 years of food and I got all this ammo and blah, 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 blah. Well, your neighbor, knock, knock, knock. Your neighbor's wife, knock, knock, knock. Your neighbor's kids, knock, knock, knock. Your neighbor's cousins, friends, all this other. You're going to have people who are going to pounce on your impound, your compound, not impound, compound. You're gonna have that happen. I guarantee you. You say, "Oh, that'll never happen to me," or I got all these guns, so I'll just shoot them all." Don't get yourself into that situation at all. Just act normal, like everybody else. Swallow your pride. You don't have to be like, "Well, I'm better than you." Don't get yourself into that situation. My battery is almost dead. It's live streaming, but if you're gonna prep, if you're gonna do all that stuff, don't make it known to everybody. You don't have to have 100 acres of land to be a prepper. You can be a prepper in your own house, in your own neighborhood, everywhere else. You come up with plans. What are you going to do if the power goes out? What are you going to do if there's a shortage of food, shortage of water? How do you filter your water? Are you going to be able to grow your own food? What kind of privacy fence are you going to put up to make sure people don't know what's going on inside? How many guns do you have? How much ammo do you have? Be prepared. Don't go out and advertise to everybody everything that you have, because you're going to make them laugh at first. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to be like, that guy is crazy. But when you know what hits the fan, you're no longer the crazy guy. You are now the target. You are the one they are going to come after because you have what they need to survive. And people don't just roll over and die. They will go grab friends. They will go grab a neighborhood. They will start a mob. You would be surprised how quickly people can get together for survival to overcome their own starvation. And they don't care if they have to sacrifice you or your kids, your wife, whoever. They don't care because it's, survival of the fittest. They want what you have, okay? They don't care if you survive. They may negotiate it first. They may say, hey, let's all share. But then you are severely reducing your life because you've got to feed all these other people out there with your reserves. You put the time, the money, the effort, the knowledge, the research, everything into surviving. Don't let them come and just take that. Don't stand out from the crowd. Don't be a target. Act like your neighbor. Mow your lawn like they do. All the stuff that they do it. Act like a normal person. Meanwhile, you've got a year's worth of food in the basement. You've got water that's going to last you for however long. You've got yourself all set up, and then you go to the streets with them and act stupid, like, I don't know what I'm going to do or whatever. Then they're not even going to think about you. They're going to be like, oh, shit, what do we do? What do we do? And they're going to be off trying to figure out how to survive when you're nice and comfortable inside your own house. It's not until they go to bang down that door that you need to be concerned that you need to defend yourself, because if you don't act like you have all this stuff, then you're not going to be a target. And I hope that we never get to the point where literally groups of 100 people with guns and all this other stuff are going door to door, knocking people's doors in and whatever. I hope that never ever happens. But if things get really, really bad, that will end up happening. Hopefully it never does. Again, I hope. But there's nothing wrong, even if the end of the world doesn't happen. Basically is what I'm talking about. Um, there's nothing wrong with growing your own food. There's nothing wrong with growing your own eggs. Your chickens raising chickens for eggs. There's nothing wrong with knowing how to filter your own water. There's nothing wrong with raising livestock, storing food, learning how to can, stocking up on ammo, learning how to, safely shoot a firearm. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, just to have those survivability, you know, just to have those skills to be able to slaughter your own animals and just take care of yourself, even if the world is just fine. There's nothing wrong with being able to take care of yourself. Okay, that's basically it. Even if nothing ever does happen, the world for the next 1,000 years goes on just fine without a major catastrophe or event or anything else like that. It's cool to be able to grow your own food. My fiance Danielle, the Genitree Homestead, she grows her own food, and my mind is still blown at all the stuff that she's able to produce out of this garden. One day I'm gonna have to figure it out. We are, you know, we're working towards getting our own land and stuff like that, building our own house and all this other great stuff, and then we'll be able to really expand on that. But till then, I'm just super fascinated with all the stuff that she's able to grow in her own yard. Stuff that I just go to the store to get, she's able to grow in her own yard, and it tastes probably better than any store-bought stuff. But anyway, okay, rambling. Yes, I do. I ramble. I'm tired. I think I'm gonna head to bed now. But just wanted to answer some questions, talk to you guys. Been streaming for almost 2 hours now. Might do this on a regular basis. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, life has been good. I enjoy everything that I do. I enjoy the YouTube. I enjoy working with Power Jack. I enjoy all of this stuff. Uh, Hopefully, I'll be able to expand my business into brick and mortar or something bigger. We'll see. Only time will tell. Uh, you're right. That's true. But practice makes perfect. Um, I know it always looks like I'm tired. Believe me, get that a lot. And I am honestly tired. Happy tired. I think if I weren't working my other job, then I think I wouldn't be so tired. But you have to do what you have to do. And I'm working really hard to build up my own homestead, my own business. And it takes a lot of work. It's not easy. And I encourage all of you out there, no matter what it is, work for it. The results, every time I repair an inverter, I don't do jumping jacks out of the room or anything else like that. Or cartwheels, I mean, until it's late. But I have a really good feeling that I helped somebody. That they relied on me. I was able to help them, put a smile on their face, be able to let them continue on. That I provided a service for that person, whoever. It's a really good feeling. I get a great thrill out of success, repairs, whatever. All the design stuff we're doing with this, seeing the results is awesome. It may not be exactly what you would do, but it's what I'm doing. So, yeah. I appreciate all of your support, all of you who comment, even the criticism. I appreciate it. Why? Because I don't know everything. Why? Because maybe there's a better way to do something. Why? Just because. I like free speech. I really do. I like free speech. I do. So I listen to all the comments. Every time I get a comment, it pops up on my phone. Sometimes 6, 7, 10, 12 comments come in all at once, and then I can't answer all of them because it'll only show the last 2 or 3 unless I go deep and figure out all that stuff. But I do my best. And on my Google Voice, where my website is tied into, I get a lot of messages there. I haven't seen anything pop up, but I think it's because it's hiding all my notifications except for my doorbell. So anyway, thank you again for your support. You guys know the drill. That genetreesolar.com. I do make money off the parts and the inverters that I sell there. That's how you can support me. I don't do all that Patreon stuff. Okay, it just seems I've never been one to say, please give me money. Can't stand it. And that goes back to early on in my life when my parents were going through hard times. Um, I don't know. So anyway, yeah, again, everybody have a good night. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, staying positive, trying to stay focused, trying to keep everything in order, trying to do my best that I can for you, trying to help you out, whether you purchase an inverter from me or not. I want to help you if you need help. I'm trying to build something here with Power Jack to be able to make the best possible inverters, the best possible business, the best everything. I enjoy this stuff. I really do. I'm telling you. I look tired, but I'm a happy tired, okay? I'm regretting having to go in, or dreading having to go to work tomorrow, but hopefully by the end of this year. Hopefully. We'll see. Good night, everybody. Take care. Thank you again for your support. Next time I'll let you know when I'm going to be doing another one of these live streams. It's been fun. I'll go through the comments later because they were flying kind of fast. And I will try to answer everybody. But again, thanks for your support and your help. And we're all in this together. Let's go green. Let's get off the grid. Let's be our own people again. Let's be independent. Let's make this earth a better place. Let's be better people. Okay? Better. That's the point. Better. Gotta be better people. Good night, everyone. Take care.